Yes, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I'm joined by Johnny, and we're waiting for Sean, who's having a few problems logging in at the moment, but he is trying, or he's just brushing me off. Big up, Sean. Johnny, how you doing, man? And here he is.
All right.
Look,
he's new
not
to
lying.
the game.
There he is.
Here he is. Sean, he's new to the game.
He's new
to the game.
That was the weirdest thing I have ever experienced in my life. And all of a sudden, as soon as I was like, should I do this? Should I log in? Should I press this button? Should I click on this? Should I go and try and find a way to set up a Facebook account? And I went, you know what? No, I am not doing this. This is probably the hackers doing one of those. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. And I pressed the reset button. And all of a sudden, it was just absolutely fine. So strange.
I had it once. I did have it once. So, good luck. Good
well,
luck. You're here. How you doing,
You're both
Tony?
in here now. You're both in here now, and listen, big up to everyone. Thank you. I've had a million messages this afternoon since going on We Are Tottenham TV, and people asking if they should unsubscribe. Guys and girls, it was just a football debate. No one has to unsubscribe to anyone.
Wait, what happened?
No,
People are threatening to leave the country.
Yeah, there's people with pitchforks and banners outside.
If Donald
my house
Trump
as we speak.
wins the election, and if Savva goes on We Are Tottenham TV again, that's it. I am off to France.
I'm going to support a new team.
France.
No more Spurs for me.
Absolutely amazing. Listen, big up. I enjoyed it. Listen, it was interesting. There was a lot of debate. Arian and I had a very different opinions, but listen, I live for those debates, people. Thank you for anyone who came across, and thank you to all the people who told me that I should go and kill myself. I'll take your someone in the chat said, go and kill yourself. You don't deserve Ange. So I'll contemplate it and see what I come up with later.
Did he say it with an Australian accent? Could you see
I've got no doubt. I've got no doubt it was absolutely.
They're very patriotic, the Australians. I've got to say that.
No, you know what though? I'm sorry on this. Just quickly, I've lived in Australia. My favourite people in the world are Australians and Scandinavians. Love them both, right? So nothing here against Aussies. They have tall poppy syndrome. It's a thing in Australia. I learned it there. They like to chop people down when they get too big for their boots. They like to take them out and then they build them back up again slowly with more humility and less ego. They did it to Leighton Hewitt. They did it to the Australian cricket team. They've done it to God knows how many NFL or AFL players over the years. If there was an Australian man that was in charge of a team in Australia that had vulnerabilities or weaknesses, the Australian media and the Australian the general public would rightly critique and criticize and throw the shade where it's necessary and consider the ups and downs and the pros and cons. It's just because he's here. It's just because he's an Aussie in London that's doing his thing on the biggest stage that there's no ability to really see.
Can I add to that,
fair,
Shawnee?
reasonable debate?
Can I add to that, Shawnee? Right, we're talking about an Australian nation that it got so bad for Ange, he walked out the job because he couldn't take the abuse anymore. We're not giving him any abuse. We're just questioning a few things,
Exactly.
Yeah.
A few things. It's all right for the Aussies to have a go at him.
Listen,
That's the thing. Yeah, exactly. He's our bitch.
He's our bitch.
You don't call him that. We call him that.
Oh, do you know what? I get it, right? But for me, if an English manager, right, goes over to France,
Australia, anyway,
right, if they go anywhere, I don't follow them. There's the first port of call. First of all, I don't follow them because I don't support that club. Second of all, I wouldn't go tooth and nail fighting for, oh my God, you don't get him. I don't care. Steve McLaren went out to Holland, didn't he?
Yeah.
And did his
the
whole
volley with a brolly.
Yes, we.
Oh yeah, that was embarrassing. Yeah.
He's now in Jamaica, come on. He's in Jamaica, come on. Have you heard him now? He now talks with a Jamaican accent, Steve McLaren.
It's utter madness. And by the way, I have loads of Australians who come in my show and are really good, really funny.
Yeah.
And then I just get so many of them that hate me. Like the missus suggested, let's go to Australia in January, and I said no. I said I truly think I'll be assassinated if I get out of a plane. And that's a lie. I made that up. She didn't say that. Guys,
I'd still go to Australia, mate. It's a big place. You'll be all right. You'll blend in.
I'll have to be hiding in the outback somewhere. Look, guys and girls, let me just say this: it's football. It's football. Me not liking Ange, honestly, it doesn't mean I'm unhappy with aspects of my life. You know what I mean? I am happy. I assure you, life is good. Johnny, Sean, I know we've only got you for a little bit, Johnny, but Sean, we've got you for a little bit. And there's going to be a hard stop for me at 7:30 because I'm then going to redirect everybody over to the Danalist, who's just starting to grow his channel. Myself and Iggy are the guests on there tonight with Dan from Danalist and Nige from Pure COYS, who's in the chat. Big up to those two. And
I've never heard of this guy. Who is this? Who is this man?
The Danalist, DAN. ALYST. Really good.
Has he been a guest on other channels before he did his own channel?
Yeah. He's just forging his path. So Iggy and I are jumping on tonight. Let me ask, guys. Tottenham, yay! More Tottenham talk. Look, December has started. We knew we had 9 games in December, starting with Fulham. We've got 8 to go, and I think the next 20 is it the next 26 days
Something
where we've
like
got
that.
8 games. Guys, I want to talk about how December's going to be, what needs to happen from a Spurs and from an Ange perspective, and more kind of in keeping with where we're at the moment. We've got Bournemouth Thursday, Chelsea Sunday, 2 difficult games on paper. Is the pressure on Ange at the moment? Is the pressure on the club, or do we just think that everything's fine? Regardless of what happens, we're just going to keep flying along with the way we're going. What do you guys make about this?
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about coming into this period when the period we've left behind, with Leicester, Brighton, Palace, Ipswich, Fulham. I'll read that out again. That's Leicester, Brighton, Palace, Ipswich, and Fulham. We've got 2 points. Let that sink in. So when you err on the side of caution going into the bigger games, you think, well, will this be much harder than those games? The difference is that when the team comes to play football against us, we've got more of a chance, because it does suit our football. I think Bournemouth is slightly different. They've already beaten Arsenal and Man City this season. Or is it Liverpool? I can't remember. Is it Arsenal and Man City, wasn't it?
Yeah, they've beaten Arsenal and City at home, yeah.
At home, yeah. So, listen, I think we need to get a foothold. If that means drawing both games, I would accept that. Drawing both games, trying to stop the rot of this up and down, win a game, lose 2 games, win 2 games, lose 2 games. We need to start and build ourselves a solid base of foundation that we can try to kick on and move forward. Because as you say, and you and I both spoke about before we came on, we need consistency. And consistency can consist of 2 draws on the trot. That's consistent. But obviously we're looking to move forward from there. We're coming through a really testing period. And I honestly believe that if he doesn't win any of this game, Bournemouth, Chelsea, and we struggle against Man United, the noise will get extremely loud. I just think, though, that Levy is so invested and puts so many eggs into this Ange basket that
you can't surely complain. People have been complaining about him not spending for so long. Now he's finally back to manage. People go, well, he's backed him too much. And now we're 2-footed with this clown.
So now
Daniel, put your wallet away. Put your wallet away.
Normally he would have pressed the button and the ejector seat, and he would be flying on his way back to Australia by now. But he's fully invested, and he can't hit the ejector button, because if it was Nuno, he'd be gone already.
Yeah, I mean,
no, he wouldn't.
Sure. Well, Nuno would. We Nuno.
We're seventh. We're seventh in the. It's not. It's
no,
not.
no. I'm saying under Nuno's. What? No. What? Let me clarify that. Nuno got sacked for the same. When you looked at the parallel for better than him.
I think that if the first 10 games hadn't happened, then I think that there'd be a little bit less patience. But that bought him a lot more rope. Whether that rope's going to be enough to hang himself with because of his stubbornness around adaptation and stuff. We'll see, right? We'll see.
Well, Sean, let me ask you though. So Johnny's turned around and said that two draws from those two games would be good. 2 draws for you, is that good enough? Should we be at least winning one? And how many? I should have just asked this question. How many points is good enough from the next 2 games? Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home.
Good enough. Good enough. I mean, good enough. Enough is it's like you use these words, right? Like what's like someone said, what's better, like too salt or too sweet? It doesn't matter, right? Too much of anything is horrible, right? And
right, okay, yeah.
Good enough. Well, enough is like, what's the bar here? I don't know. To me, 2 points would be good enough for him to keep his job. Good enough to keep the Pirates at bay or whatever. But the outcome for me is not so much around the results. Alex, look, if we draw against Bournemouth and lose an unlucky game against Chelsea, I'll be like, I won't be happy, but I'll tolerate it if I see a few other things that are demonstrated. Because I'm cognizant of the injuries. I'm cognizant of I'm not such a believer in this Thursday, Sunday thing is tiring, but Wednesday, Saturday's fine. I don't buy into that sort of thing. But what I would say is, if I see things on the pitch, if I see things within the dugout that I believe he is learning on the job a little bit and actually picking up lessons from the previous errors, then I'll tolerate, bad outcomes, because I think that Bournemouth away is a really, really tricky fixture. It's a tricky fixture anyway. I think that Chelsea at home is obviously it's a bad one for us anyway. Bananas can always, right? So I'm not so much driven by the results of these two. I'm more going to be driven and deciding my take on it based around what I see on the pitch. And what I don't want to see is things like what I saw against Fulham. Not just the overall lack of energy, the lack of interest, the lack of communication, the lack of so many things, but the lack of common sense with regards to the starting 11. Like, let's be honest, the press that Ange Ball is relied on when when you don't have possession, the press is everything. And you have to press as a unit. If your 10 outfield players press correctly, you win the ball back in high places and everything can materialize. You start the defense from the front. If you don't, if you have one man or two men that are sloppy, slow, not pulling their weight, then the whole thing can get pulled apart. We saw it with United last season, where 7 players would press and the other 3 weren't, and then they would just get triangled through and cut wide open. Against Fulham, I think there is a massive error in judgment if you think you're going to press from the front effectively when you have 4 players on the pitch, none of whom are known for their off-the-ball work ethic. Right, Timo Werner. I like Timo. I do like Timo. It's nice to see him do a little bit more with the ball at his feet, but he doesn't get back and do things enough to help out Destiny Udogie or whoever's playing left back, Archie Gray or whatever. Brennan Johnson is resting on his laurels with his ability to have a good finish. And I'm not taking it away from him. He's a great finisher of the ball at the moment. He's popped some balls in, 9 goals this season. Fair play, pat on the back. Wonderful. The system suits your ability to get there at the last minute. Your engine is ridiculously poor. Your stamina is ridiculously poor. And your work rate on the ball and off of it, outside of that little last moment, is embarrassing. And then you've got Sonny in the 9, who, let's be honest, is not known very much for getting back. And then behind all of them, you have James Maddison, who I absolutely applauded, and rightly so, for his work ethic against City. Right? But the usual James Maddison doesn't really get back and do too much in the way of off-the-ball stuff. You have 4 players there that do enough off the ball, and then you expect the press to work against a well-drilled, hard-working Fulham. It's madness. You had Decky and you had Will Lancashire, who were obvious better selections, and if they gave them 60 and then took them off, and Jed Spence, and you bring in Archie Gray, put him in the 6, you could easily have got a better outcome if you recognise that you can't have those 4 players put in their typical shifts and expect the press to work from the front. It's just madness to me. Madness.
Look, Sean, I don't disagree with you. I think that for me, the fact that we saw Will Lancashire not start the game is a concern for me. If we're talking about we want to bring young players through and we're not letting this go on loan, you've got Richie out and Solanke out, and you're thinking, right, play him. But again, Ange, for me, just naturally defaults to the senior pros. And this is where I've said all year, when a lot of fans have been telling me that this is a youth project, it looks like a youth project with signings, but the manager, everything he does is completely the opposite to a youth project.
Correct.
But, Johnny, listen, I agree with Sean on that point. And you know, for me, I think it goes a lot
How could you
deeper than
not?
that. Huh?
How could you not agree? It was
Well,
absolute
exactly.
pinpoint perfect science.
Everything Sean says, nail on head. Let me try and hammer that nail in a bit more, Johnny. For me, again, though, I've got to go back to this, Johnny, and you and I have talked about this off stream. This constant need to invert two fullbacks into midfield and leave this glaring space at right back and left back. Every team we're playing at the moment, Johnny, is now starting to not just overlap. Fulham underlapped. Fulham underlapped so much behind our fullbacks, and he just doesn't change it. He's got to adapt, right?
Look, you know, I like uncertainty. I like to go out and I hope I have a nice night. You know, it's the uncertainty of what the night unfold, what's going to unfold that night when I go out. There's no uncertainty when you play Spurs. You know exactly what you're going to get. Well, as fans, we don't know what we're going to get, but the opposition know exactly what they're dealing with. I mean, I was watching the Roma game, and I was going nuts. Look how inverted. Look how narrow we are. There was so much space. Reason why? None of our wing backs track back. Johnson doesn't track back. Timo doesn't.
That drives me up the wall.
Sonny doesn't track back. So hang on a minute. Let's put Porro and Destiny under so much pressure, or Archie Gray. I mean, you put look. Don't even get me started on this. You put an 18-year-old who's a 6, not at right back, not at centre back. It's like lucky dip. What card we pulled out today? No, let's stick him at left back.
No, I've been saying that, man. His versatility is going to be a rod for his own back. He needs to turn around and go, I don't want to be this everything guy. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. I'm a 6. Let me prove myself as a 6. Because you know what? The only thing we need, I've been saying it for 2 years. The Bible has been saying it for 2,000 years.
Six.
Beware the beast, for his mark is a name and a name of a man, and it is 6.
If you open the Bible or whichever religious book is of your choosing, people, there are plenty available. I don't own any, but if you open the Bible, page 1 says, and on the 7th day, God created a holding midfielder, and we shall call him the 6. And on the 8th day, God created Ange, and he said, "That's not who we are, mate."
Let me tell you, honestly and truthfully, when Archie Gray was being hunted by Brentford, they offered him to play in the 8 position and gravitate towards the 6, and Spurs sold him the same story. Now, I'm just telling you, his family, the Gray DNA, are not happy. There's no way they can be happy looking at this kid. I think he's a really, really fantastic player. And I think, he got really, really exposed against Roma, but I thought he grew into the game. I just don't understand the manager. I don't understand when you're sitting there watching this space, watching people exploit it. It all started with Gary O'Neill, Monday Night Football, went on Sky and say, let me put up here, this is how you beat handball. All right? Hey, hang on. All right, so you do this, and that's how I beat him. And not only did he do it once, he then came to our ground and did exactly the same thing again. And if you follow the blueprint, the Gary O'Neill blueprint, who's now sitting second from bottom in the league or third bottom from the league, even he can suss it out, right? So
he managed to beat Fulham 4-1 away, by the way.
Correct.
He managed to win 4-1.
Correct.
Yeah.
We made them look like, I don't know. I don't know. But look, I think it's concerning. It's concerning. It really is concerning. And I don't see anything changing. I really don't.
Can I just quickly, ever so quickly, this is as a guy in the comic called Spurs Rule. Believe it or not, that was the name of my password for like 15, 20 years of my life. I just changed it. Spurs Rule 1. Spurs. You haven't said that your password update.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you guys really want to
42?
succeed and willing to stop looking at the financials, because that shouldn't matter for us to be winners? Oh, financials don't matter. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Of course, finances matter.
Do you know what else matters? There's over 300 people in here. We've got 67 likes. Look, Sean, I just want to.
Do we know any of them?
Huh?
Do we know any of them?
What, the 67?
The 67, yeah.
Yeah, who's the chosen 67? Come on, guys, let's get up to 150, 200 immediately.
It should be 66. 6! 6!
The number is 6. Sean, you've said this all along. We talked about this all last season, throughout all our differences of things we do agree on Spurs and we don't. One thing we've all agreed on, right, is if you're going to play one inverted fullback, you need a 6. If you're going to play 2, the number 6 has got to be the most important position on the pitch. But Sean,
so important.
He wants 2 8s. He wants to play with 2 8s.
I get that, but my point is this, Sean. Again, we watched it against. Look, I could pick any game, but if you look at the last 2 games, Roma worked out very quickly, or Dilly Ding, Dilly Dong would have done his homework. He worked out very quickly that what you've got to do, diagonal balls over Spurs midfield, behind Porro and Udogie, who don't actually play at fullback, and you're in a position to attack.
Yeah.
And in the first half, it was Dybala and Celik down the right, and it was
Reece Nelson.
It was Angelino on the left.
All right, okay, sorry.
Against Fulham, Reece Nelson, Anthony Robinson, Iwobi, and
Kenny Tete. Best right back in the league.
Two players get down our sides. And let's be brutally honest. People can say, well, we've not conceded as many. The chances we're giving up, Sean. Forster had a blinder. That man kept us in the game left, right, and centre. And all of the chances came from teams playing down our channels. He's not changing it, Sean. He's not adapting.
Yeah,
Why?
that to me is
Why?
like when I said like in the first little rant about the 4 men at the top who can't press because that's not in their DNA. You need at least 2 of them. You need ideally you have 3, right? You put in, if you're going to have James, Maddison and Sonny, then you can't have Johnson, and you need Dom Solanke, who does work ridiculously hard, right? And his lack of goals needs to be like baked in, obviously, but his ability to work is his absence. And even Richarlison, who I can't stand as a player, he works hard enough to make up for some of the lacking in the other players. But that's just the start, right? You got at the top end of the pitch. That's just the start. Then you've got no 6. We talk about that all the time. We just waxed about that one. And then you've got, the logic of, as you say, the inverted fullbacks, the underpass, the undercut, and the drive for these guys. Who, as I say, even if you Pedro Porro and you go, he's one of the most technically gifted right backs in the league. If he could be repositioned into a midfielder, you wouldn't call him a 6 either. You'd call him more of an 8. Right, because he's not really defensively oriented at all. So, Destiny Doggy may be a little bit more comfortable getting back and has a bit more of an engine to do it. But when you got Archie Gray there, who's just learning his trade, and you're playing against a team who are known for having, I would say, arguably the most balanced and well-rounded wide fullbacks, wide players that can undercut and can overpass on the outside with absolute aplomb. And I just think that Marco Silva would have been sat there going, this is a dream match up. If he does what he usually does, if Ange sticks to his plan, then Fulham's like Moses, right? There's parting of the seas. They don't really go through the middle. They everything goes down the sides. So to not give any protection to Pedro Porro in the form of a Brennan Johnson who won't track back, and to not give any protection to Archie Gray, who didn't get any help from Timo Werner. And then you've got Sonny as well up there playing in the 9, who I think doesn't fit a 9 in this system at all, especially unless you have Decky behind it who's doing some tidy work. Then, like I say, to me, I got to say, I like Ange. In my video today, I said it before Ange was the guy, but I always said that the guy after Conte is not going to be the guy. It's the guy after the guy that's going to be the guy, right? I've always been saying
that. A bit like Fergie.
It's going to take time, right? It's going to take time, and he's going to inherit the pendulum swing as it pulls back down to gravity. But that said, I do like it. I want Ange to work. I want him to be here. I'm not ready for the new project yet, so I want this to go as long as it has. And the longer he's here, the better he's doing. Clearly, that's just the logic of it. So I'm happy for it to play itself out. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and not analyze and criticize or critique. And I think that there are so many obvious areas for improvement, that are just being overlooked because of this stubborn attachment to an ego that is based around this. It's who we are, mate. And he has made a rod for his own back.
Sean, is that not going to ultimately lead to his downfall?
Yeah, it will do, mate. It will do. But listen, his brand. Last thing I'll say, John, sorry. His brand is so stupidly now aligned with that it's who we are, that if he walks away from it, then his personal brand is in tatters, because he's built his whole career saying, this is what we do and I'm not changing for anyone. I'm like, okay, cool. If it's always built success for you, there's no reason for you to doubt it. I get it. And good luck to you. And he's got to think about his career after Tottenham and where's next and where does he go for the next opportunity. And so he is tied to an egotistical attachment to it's who we are. But unfortunately, it's who we are is not who we can afford to be with the level of players that we have and the level of competition in the Premier League.
So based on that, do you think we're still going for the league?
Yeah, well, Johnny, the Championship League, maybe.
You're still here, Johnny. I don't know why you're still here, because you're late.
Well, I've got to go in three or four.
Okay, cool. Johnny, let me ask you then. By the way, I wasn't trying to kick you off.
No, that's fine.
But this is what I find quite interesting. Sean brings up a brilliant point there, that it's the brand that he's built upon himself during press conferences, and that is now emanating, if that's the right word. It might not be. One of you will tell me, onto the pitch. And what I mean by that is when people keep saying to me, I hear all the time, patience, right? He will adapt. And I'm like, okay, but what he's saying in the press conference is actually coming true on the pitch. He's told us, Johnny, he said again before Fulham, I have zero interest in being pragmatic. Now, again, before I say what I'm about to say, people need to stop thinking that asking a manager to be pragmatic in games doesn't mean you want them to be negative for 90 minutes, right?
Correct.
But he told us, Johnny, he doesn't want to be pragmatic. And then for Fulham and Roma, we're winning both games, still bombing forward, still no fullbacks in defence. He's doing what he's saying, and it is going to be his undoing, Johnny, because he's not tightening up.
I mean, listen, look, I asked for Ange ball with a dollop of pragmatism. Why can't I have a dollop of it? Why can't I have a sprinkle? A sprinkle. You know, when we're one up, we're one up. It's 5 minutes to go. What are we going to do? We're going to try and move the ball as quickly as possible, take a goal kick as quickly as possible. We're not going to play the game. We're not going to gain management that, manage that game to the 90th, 91st minute. Go on.
No, you're right. So I was talking to the person in the chat. Go on.
You're right. Okay. Yeah, no, and it's this inability to acknowledge that, it's not working and to change something about the setup. I actually believe, I think I mentioned this to Sean earlier when we spoke, that the team currently is a mirror, a reflection of Ange's demeanour. Yeah. That depressing demeanour that he carries. There's no excitement. I don't see yes, come on, let's go. That's his demeanour. That's how I feel half the time we come onto the pitch and how we conduct our games. Apart from the Manchester City game, I mean, look at the Arsenal game. I feel like we never even turned up. What was the motivational speech in the tunnel? I expect the Gettysburg Address. If only he was as pissed off in that game going out.
Johnny, do you know what?
Gettysburg Address.
Johnny, do you know
nonchalantly into a football chat. Love that, Johnny. Well done.
You want like a Churchillian speech as they go onto the pitch.
Come on. This is it.
Do you know what, Johnny, though? Really, really good point. Because if you look, and I'm not talking about, I know people have pointed at Man City for the last 7 games, but when you look at Man City, right, the way they are on the pitch for the last 7-8 years, they are the same as Pep. They are motivated. They are energetic. They are winning. They are, never say die. Perfect football. Must do this. Look at Ferguson's teams at Man United. Yeah? He was the boss. Right?
Correct.
They were the boss. How many late winners did they get? Games where, Man U were dog shit and they'd still win 2-1 in the last 5 minutes. Chelsea under Mourinho. Klopp with Liverpool. All of these managers, their teams mirror them. And unfortunately,
correct,
Spurs mirror Ange in terms of sometimes Ange is brilliant in a press conference and he's funny. And that's the Spurs I see go out and beat Villa, beat Man City. then Ange, sometimes I think, are you just trying to wind people up, Ange? And that's the team I see on the pitch.
Mate, we only get 20 minutes of insight access to Ange every week, right? You get the pre-match press conference and you get the post-match press conference. And the pre-match press conference can be chirpy if he's on the back of a win. If he's not, and he gets asked a question that is a fair question to ask from any journalist, they're just doing their job. He can roll his eyes, smirk, and kind of like I've said this again the other day. I feel like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. This is a question, not so much as a statement, more of a question.
Yep.
But when he said, like the other day, I think it was before the Roma game, or maybe after the Roma game, he said some Italian journalist said, even though I've been more commonly found doing accents recently, I'm not going to be doing the Italian one today. I'm not quite ready for it yet. But he said, Ange, when are you going to acknowledge the set piece, of weakness? When are you going to do this? And sorry, I couldn't help myself. And Ange just sort of
dilly ding, dilly dong.
Yeah. He scoffed, rolled his eyes and went, mate, we've only conceded three set pieces all season, so I don't know what to say about that. And I want to go, yeah, but why? What's changed? What's changed? Because for me, we haven't addressed anything. The only thing that's changed is that the majority of teams no longer treat Big Vic with the disrespect that they did last season following City's demonstration of value there, and that kind of fizzled out, and most teams don't do it. But the few times this season that they have done it and Vic's been in goal, he's shown just as many vulnerabilities in that regard. And I don't think that anything has changed in the way that we approach set pieces. And so the 3 goals that we have conceded, yes, it's an improvement in output, but the input factors as to why that is, I don't think are down to Tottenham. I think that's down to opposition changing things up. Sorry, Johnny, I know you've got to go.
Oh, I know, I've got to go. So I would just want to say, we started off with jolly, humorous Ange, right?
Yeah.
The media darling. Now what we've got is a depressed looking Undertaker in a badly fitting suit who stands there with his hands in a pocket, giving off negative vibes. And I don't care he does that, I'll be honest with you. What I care about is when he's on the pitch, when we're on the pitch and our young kids are looking at each other because they don't know what to do, they look to the manager. And the manager is offering nothing. I'll leave you with that because that, for me, is the hardest thing to take. Okay.
Johnny, just before you do go, do you want to announce right now what we were talking about earlier? I said to Johnny, mate, we're going to do something more as like a channel thing, but maybe it's better if you get, do your own channel. I'll come and join you. And Johnny's like, yeah, but I need a grift, man. Everyone's got a grift. What's my grift? And I said, well, my grift was Bugsy Malone. So maybe you could do something like that. He's like, yeah, but I haven't got a dog. So what Johnny's going to do is going to start a dog walking grift that he just has the lead. Just the lead. And drags it along the floor.
And I'm going to throw the ball to my man.
You could borrow one of mine. You could borrow. Sean, hang on. What's my grift?
Your grift is telling it, basically being perennially negative.
I saw your show the other night.
I'm going to have to go.
See you, Johnny.
Savva, Sean, I'm sure we'll do it again.
Man.
Sean, I'll see you tomorrow, buddy.
Cheers, John.
Take
care, buddy.
Good luck, buddy. And everyone in the chat, enjoy these two and have a good evening. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah,
bye.
See you, mate.
Big up people in the chat. Proximo, I do like statements like this, Sean. They kick something off inside me where I just think, first of all, you just don't like Ange. This isn't personal. I'm sure I've said it many times. He looks like I'd love to go. Well, I don't drink anymore. I would have loved to have gone for a pint with him, right? Me not rating a football manager is not personal. This whole thing of, oh, you've got an agenda needs to stop. My agenda is I don't like his tactics. I don't like the way he manages. That's all it is. But hey, it is what it is. Big up to people in the chat, seeing a lot of the same faces. Big up to all the new people, and also big up to Graham Hill, who has just put in a nice little super sticker there or a super chat, but didn't say anything. So big up to you, Graham. On behalf of your super chat, I'll say it. Ange out. That's what you wanted to say, wasn't it? I'm joking. I'm joking. Graham, big up to you. Thank you so much. Sean, yeah, look, I said I watched your show the other day when you're talking about grifting and all this kind of stuff. And
oh man, I went in. You know what it was?
No,
those bloody magnums, mate. Have you had? Do you have? I don't know where you live in South London. Is there like a? I mean, I've fallen in love with black culture, and it started with magnums. I don't like. I've never, because where I live, there's not. They don't sell magnums because there's not a Jamaican like population around here. And
right.
When I discovered them last season, it was Daps from Never a Foul that that got me onto them. I was like, what's that bottle you're drinking? What's that thing? And he goes, oh, they're magnums. They're amazing. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I bought one outside the Tottenham ground last season, and I was like, these things are bloody amazing. They're phenomenal. And I took a couple home after the game, and I was like, it's 10 o'clock. I got to get some stuff off my chest. And then I went off, and I decided to just go in on certain things and certain topics. And I blame the magnums. You know.
Yeah, big up Jacob in the chat. Big up to you again. Just another showing that Jacob and I talk off screen. We have completely different views on football, but we still talk off screen without managing to be horrible to each other.
Speaking of which, he's a massive sycophant of Christian Romero, isn't he, Jacob?
Yeah. Oh, Jacob. Yeah, Jacob, mate. He loves it. Jacob, feel free to jump on, but he loves him.
Would you sell Romero
all day long? all day. Sean,
same,
I was
same,
one of the.
same.
I've been saying this for the 3.5 years, whatever that he's been here. I think Romero's good. I just think he's massively overrated. And
same. I agree.
And the reason I say that is top defenders, no matter who they're playing with, no matter what the team is around them, they stand out like a sore thumb. Look at Ledley. Some of the teams Ledley played in, Ledley just stood out. Like he was just class. Romero, for me, listen, and there's nothing wrong if he is doing this, Sean. Romero, for me, looks like a guy who has used his route from Atalanta to Spurs to go on up. And that's fine. I understand where we are in the food chain. I get it. But now we're starting to see a lot of iffy performances from him more often than not. So yeah, I would sell him. I know what I'm going to get back from people. Do I trust the scouts and the owners to go and buy appropriately? Well,
okay, what does appropriately look like? For me, it depends on who the manager is. And I always say this, when you're buying, again, people are going to misinterpret me saying you're buying for the next manager as much as you are for this one. And I don't mean that, don't interpret that as Ange out. Interpret that as the reality that when a manager has an average tenure of 15 months in the Premier League, unless you're part of the big five of all time, which includes, for what it's worth, David Moyes, funnily enough. But even if you take those guys out, 15 months is the average. And Ange's past that, right? And when you sign a player on a 5-year deal, he's going to be here for the next manager as much as he is this manager. And to me, what does that look like then? How do you improve on Christian Romero? And if you can get 80 million, 90 million, whatever the market thinks he's worth, he's got the World Cup on his CV, and he's got the Copa America, I think. So, you know, you've got the resume to be able to command a healthy fee. But what do you look like? Well, for me, you get someone who's better in the air. You get someone who's got the physicality and the athleticism that can go alongside Mickey van der Ven. And that looks like a Jonah Tah type, right? And he's available. He's available at the end of the season. And I think that guy is calm, assured. He's not quite as good a passer as Romero, but few defenders are. But I still think that he's got the pace, the electric, the anticipation, the ability to read the game. Crucially strong in the air, because I don't think Romero is very good in the air. Jamaican Ray and nephew. Oh, sounds good.
Have you never had Ray and nephew?
No. Is
it good? 63% white rum.
Imagine if I had a couple of them before I came on stream. Wow.
And I used to drink Ray and, if anyone knows, I used to drink Ray and Ting. If anyone remembers Ting, like a lilt type drink. Ray and Ting.
Yeah.
Yeah, my best mate Woody, he
pineapple
drinks
based,
it all the time. Yeah.
Pineapple. Yeah, nice, yeah.
Cool. Sean, do you know what? I'll make you right. For me, I've said this all along. Do I always need the centre back to come in to be on paper as good as Romero? No, I use this word. I want a consistent centre back. I want a centre back that isn't, today he was great because we brought the ball out from the back. Oh, today we weren't good because he was asked to do something different. I just want a solid centre half. Like, you know, when you look at some of these other clubs in and around us, you watch some of their centre halves and they just do a good job. Like, there's no, he's worth 100 million. Is he World Cup? Just go out there. Look at Dunk at Brighton. Lewis Dunk at Brighton has been in Brighton's defence for years and years and years as they got better and better and better and better. Yeah? Dunk's not world class. Dunk's not the greatest footballer I've ever seen bringing the ball out. But you know what? Week in, week out, year in, year out for Brighton, he's there, body on the line. You know, he'll do. I'm not saying it has to be Dunk, Sean, but you get my.
I know.
Point,
yeah, of course,
right?
Yeah. You want consistency.
Yeah.
You want the dependability of Ben Davies, but just with a higher ceiling, slightly better, kind of better levels. But Romero, I think, you know, for all of his talent, I don't think he communicates very well. I don't think he's grasped the English language quite yet, which I know is difficult for a lot of people. It's fair enough. It is what it is. But I just feel like there's a lot of like holes in his game that to me doesn't really equivocate with this idea of him being one of the world's best centre backs just because he plays for Argentina and has been in. And also, for what it's worth, I do think there is the little things that add up that compound on each other when you're evaluating the worth of a player in your squad. Not just the red card recklessness that he's curtailed it to a degree, but he still loves a rash challenge and he's broken his foot. I'd also say that, you know, the traveling back and forth to South America is a hindrance, that when they play midweek games, it's not happening until Thursday morning our time. And then if they have to fly back for a weekend game, jet lag is a big deal. It's always been a factor, like the South American travel bug, if you like. I think he does prioritize country over club. And, you know, if he's twerking for a bigger team, and I get it, like you say, I respect the hierarchy and the chain and all that stuff. I think you could do better for less. And people saying Radu Dragusin is the guy. The only thing I think Radu Dragusin has improved. The only thing I would say about Radu, he's young and yes, he's got a lot of time to improve, but I don't think he's got the mobility to play this system quite the way that Ange wants to play it. But with the next manager, the next cab off the rank, if he is essentially a philosophically continuity type where you still play good football, but there's a little bit more balance and a little bit kind of more respect of the opposition tactics and stuff, then I think that maybe Dragusin could be the guy. But I also look out there and think, I like athletic defenders. And for me, there's plenty of them out there that aren't going to cost you 90 million.
I look at someone like, I don't know how much it'll cost. I mean, Palace turned down a lot of money in the summer for him. I look at someone like Guehi, right? Again, have I seen better defenders than Guehi? Yes. But I watch him and I think he just wants to defend. He just wants to do his job. He'll want to put in the tackles. He wants to put his head on things. And the problem I've got is I've seen, like, Steve Combo, big up. Thanks for the comment. I think the difficulty that I have with this, Steve, is all the excuses I heard for Romero being up and down under Conte was it's the system, right? Now the reasons I'm hearing under Ange is it's the system. As I said, top defenders tend to show their worth. Virgil van Dijk in this system would still look like Virgil van Dijk, right? He would still, and I'm using him because for me, Sean, he's the best centre-back in the Premier League.
Yeah, he's the benchmark,
right?
yeah. Benchmark,
he's the benchmark, right? Ledley King, from a Spurs perspective, if I watched him play in this formation, Ledley would still be controlling that defence, telling defenders where to be and at what time, you know, clearing his box.
Did you hear Ledley King on TalkSport the other day? He was making a claim. He said they were referencing that amazing challenge, that got back challenge against the Belgian player who played for Chelsea. Not Robin. Who went to Real Madrid for like 100 million quid. Who am I thinking of? Who's the winger for Chelsea? Went to Real Madrid for like
Eden Hazard.
Eden Hazard, right? So he gets back and does that, and that challenge, and Ledley King turned around and went, "Look, I was fast back then." He goes, "We weren't." People talk about Mickey van der Ven, the fastest player in the Premier League history. We weren't measuring pace. I was like, "Hang on about Ledley. You can't be surely you're not making a claim that you're faster than Mickey van der Ven."
Yeah.
Come on, there's levels to this game, and you know your knees wouldn't allow that.
His knee. I'll tell you what though. How good was Ledley? Like this is the thing. I think a lot of fans as well haven't seen that. You know, I've grown up watching Gary Mabbott, right? Before Gary Mabbott, I remember when I was very young, I was watching Richard Gough. You know, watching centre backs where I went, wow, these guys. They
was he at Norwich or Coventry?
Who? Richard Gough. He was. Yeah. Wasn't Richard Gough Rangers?
Have a look.
Wasn't he Rangers? I just remember like. But even when I looked at Gough, when I looked at Mabbott,
he was at Rangers, yeah.
I watched even watching Michael Dawson. If we're going to bring it to more of this era, right? Michael Dawson, was he the greatest centre back you've ever seen? No, Did you know what you were getting from Dawson every single game? Come rain or shine, system. It's cold, it's wet, it's sunny, it's warm.
Yeah, dirty tactical masterclass.
Right. Dawson,
he's the sort of guy who'd pinch your bollocks before a corner, wouldn't he?
But again, a leader of men, Sean. So Dawson at the back was telling people, "Oi, get here." He'd go and stick his head on everything. Now I think we've. Do you know what? I'll send it to you later, Sean. But there was a really good podcast. I'm sure some of you in the chat have seen this. Sorry, just quickly. If you want players like Dunk, you need to develop your youth academy. Most of our players transfers in. Obviously, I don't know why. If you want a player like Dunk, go and sign a player like Dunk. It's pretty simple, isn't it? There was a podcast, Sean. I'm sure many people have seen it. And it was Rio Ferdinand's podcast where he had Robbie Keane on last week. And this isn't about centre-backs, but footballers in general.
Oh, yeah. And Robbie Keane tried to slide himself into the back in the day, there was a lot of strikers. There was Ronaldo.
There was Zlatan. There was Ronaldo.
There was me.
There was me.
All right, Robbie.
All right.
How'd you get yourself in there, Robbie? It's like you think we didn't notice.
But take the premise of their conversation, right? And apply it to defenders. Because Rio Ferdinand turned around and said, one week, he said, I walked out on the pitch and they had Zlatan and Adriano up front. And I'm thinking, geez, this is going to be a long day. The next week, I can't remember the two. He said the next week I think it was like Trezeguet and someone else. And he said, now look at the strikers across the world. Where are they?
Where are they?
And if you apply that now to centre-backs, the way we're judging centre-backs now is we give them ways out. Oh, but he doesn't play in a 3. He doesn't play in a 2. He doesn't play in a highlight. Sod that. Centre-backs, right?
Yeah.
If you can defend, you can defend.
Well,
Right,
to a degree, where I disagree with you, and I would disagree with Ange on this, is I think that left versus right-sided centre-backs is a big deal. It's a big deal.
I agree. But if we're saying 5 yards high at the pitch, 10 yards high at the pitch, to drop deep, people like Ledley King, these guys were so intelligent, they'd read the game.
Yeah.
They'd read the game. And I just don't know how we got here, but I think it's all about
but I think at the same time, right, you saw Fulham and you saw Roma do it, for what it's worth. You would never expect an Italian team to come away in Europe, come to a place like Tottenham, where you expected to, at the moment at least, you're going to be on the receiving end of only 30% or 70% against your possession. You would expect them to sit in and keep tight. Fulham, I know they're a better team this year, but generally speaking, you would expect the balance of play to think that Tottenham are going to have more possession. In actual fact, both teams, in both situations, whenever they had the ball, and even if they didn't, if the ball was up that end of the pitch, the halfway line was the offside trap for both teams in both sets of teams in both games, right? And to me, if that's the case, if that's the norm now, where the team with the possession moves up and then the fullback, however, like the defenders are going to use the halfway line as their line, then in the transition, you look and think which areas of the pitch in most teams have got the pace. And in the majority of time, it's going to be the forwards and the wide guys, right? On that basis, that's why I think that regardless of how the team is set up, whether it's Ange ball or whether it's someone else's version, if going forward, possession dictates that your defenders are going to be on the halfway line, and then you may end up in transition, then if you have to recognize the fact that the forwards on the other side are going to have that ability to turn and run on you, then you need pace in your back line to be able to curtail that. And that's why I think a prerequisite for whoever might replace Romero, if he does leave, is pace. I think you have to have it. And I just think that Radu Dragusin doesn't seem to have it for my liking.
Well, this is, as always, the question, isn't it, Sean, is, when we talk about buying players and people say, oh, well, I'll use Ange as an example, but you could say it anywhere. Oh, is he a slot player when Liverpool sign a player? Is he a Pep player? Is he an Arteta player? Is he an Ange player? You're right. Managers don't stick around for the duration of players' contracts. I know Pep's been there 8 years or not, whatever it is. But in general, if we put a player on a 5-6 year contract, the likelihood that the manager that signed them is going to see out their 5-6 year deal is low, right? That's football management. So at some point, you've got to get to the stage where you're going, okay, we need to buy it. We need to buy players for the club, not just for the manager, because this is being used far too much as an excuse for me. So-and-so didn't want so-and-so. So he's not an Ange system player. I'm sorry. When I watch Radu Dragusin defend, he's a good defender.
He is, yeah, he's good. He can read the game very well.
Right.
He can read the game for sure.
That's down to the manager. How do I get that into my team? That's what managers are paid to do. And that's why I always have a lot of respect when you look at some of the managers of the lower down teams, Sean, or the mid-table teams that don't spend 50, 60 million pound on players. They go and pick up players from the championship for 10 million. And or they've bought up players that they had in the lower leagues. Those managers don't have the opportunity to go, right, who we buying for 70 million?
Yeah.
Right, I've got to make it work.
Exactly. They haven't got the ability to go, no, it's who we are, mate. You ain't going to be anywhere. You ain't going to be around if that's who you are, because you in the lower leagues, all the way from grassroots, all the way up to probably 12th in the Premier League and below, basically, right? All of those managers essentially fit the tactics around the options in the squad, and yet teams at the top have this luxury of going, no. So that for the most part, I'm going to do it my way. And then if it doesn't work, it's because the chairman hasn't backed me to get players that I need. Maybe adapt a little bit more. Maybe have plan Bs and Cs and Ds and figure things out. That's what you're getting paid for. You're not kicking a ball. It's not exactly rocket science, right? It's just football. But there are other ways to approach a game. And a lot of managers, I think, take the easy way out of going, well, it's not my fault if I don't get the players, but I need to do it my way. Maybe your way needs to be a little bit less rigid.
No, look, I agree. For me, I think that, Danny always comes up with this, and I think it makes a great point, Sean. You listen.
Who comes up with this?
Danny from Hotspur Hood. He always says, you've got to play with a hand you're dealt, right? And i.e., if I go into a club today, not me, you know what I mean? If a manager goes into a club today and there's no transfer window, right? Ruben Amorim, for example. Ruben Amorim has got into Man United, right? He can't do anything. And let's be fair, he'll be able to do limited in January. He can't really make wholesale changes until the summer, right? So he's got to work with, right, this is the formation I'll play. Fair enough. Play your formation. Get them used to it. He's got to go, okay, you're not a centre-back. You go there. He's been playing Mazraoui or Dallo at centre-half because you know what? This is what I've got. This is the job I need from you today. Go and do it. At Spurs, we seem to have a fan base now. We go, yeah, but he's not an Ange player. Well, I'm sorry. You've bought in Radu Dragusin, who's a Romanian international. Bayern Munich wanted him, and Sean, we all celebrated when we got him above Bayern Munich. We all said, oh, look, this is good. This shows caliber. And then it's, he's not an Ange player. Well, doesn't that mean the manager then might need to tweak a little bit to get the best out of certain players?
Understand the players that you're asking for, because Radu Dragusin, I remember this. I think it was the best day in my. This is when me, you, and Henry were like all day, every day. We were streaming during the January. I think it was January, right? And we were like, we were like, when's it going to drop? When's it going to drop? And I remember I opened up my eyes one morning, and it was like 7:45, and I'm like, what's the time? And I look at first thing I do is go to the news, and I see like Spurs agreed deal for Radu Dragusin. And I was like, when did that happen? And it was like 3 minutes ago, and I was like, quick, get up!
Who's live? Who wants to join a stream?
and it was like, I think it was 2,000 people or something were watching, because I was the first one out of bed to do it out of everyone in the community. And we were talking about Radu Dragusin and his best bits, and they were like, well, he's great with the ball at his feet and he likes to ping balls into the channels. Turns out that Ange doesn't want him to do that, because everything's got to be nice and tight and compact and like, down on the floor and progressive. And okay, well then why did you want him?
Do you know what? Funny, talking about Ruben Amorim, if he came into this club right now, he'd do everything that I want. He'd have the three at the back immediately in Dragusin, Van der Ven and Romero. He'd have Porro and Udogie as his outlets out wide. Look,
allow Romero to move into the six, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, Sean, let's talk about. We could go off on tangents all day long. We've got about 20 minutes or so left. We've got Bournemouth Thursday night, and this is an interesting one, right? Because in years gone by, I would normally sit here and go, "Well, you've got to get 3 points at Bournemouth," but Bournemouth are like what I was explaining just now. Their manager, I think has done a really good job. He's been there about a year now. I think he's done a really good job, brought in some really smart signings. They're difficult to beat, and he seems tactically very, very good. Because of that, this makes this a really difficult game for us, doesn't it? Away from home.
Yeah. Yeah, look, 14,000 fans in that stadium. It's really on top of you. It's a noisy little environment, and they got some really tricky players like Semenyo, Klaas. Kluivert's come in to fill the void of Dominic Solanke. They got some old school kind of like beefcakes in the back. They've got pace, they got trickery, they got technicality. He has, on a shoestring budget, done very well under Bill Foley, who, listen, is a chairman that has got a checkered past, but he knows how to put together a well-run kind of oiled machine, if you like, of profitability, sustainability. He does it with the smaller clubs in his multi-club ownership model, and it's a nice little football club that are really progressing. It's always interesting under these managers like De Zerbi and Marco Silva, all these guys that are like that have done very well, taking their teams that they've inherited from, say, 15th, 16th relegation candidates that hang around into that next leg up. Same with Brentford, same with Brighton. I mean, Brighton obviously a little bit further ahead, but there's always that question around what do you do? How do you? It's a lot easier to move your average position from 15th to 8th or 9th than it is to go from 7th to 3rd, right? Because it's tougher at the top, and the margins are very thin, and every game is a tight one. But Iraola's done a really, really good job, and Bournemouth at home, not just at home anymore, they can play football wherever they go. They're a dangerous, a dangerous team, but you can set up against them in a certain way. If you have a team where you're considerate of their tactics and their style, you can have, they'll give up chances as well. They're tight and compact, and the pitch is tight and compact, but they do give up opportunities, but you have to play to your strengths and their weaknesses. Yeah. And that requires some acknowledgement of the fact that the opposition are who they are, and work to that kind of that system, to those ends. And I just don't think we do that enough. I think that we're going to go there and just try and play our football, and we're going to makeshift it. And Ange's going to say, I'm not going to use excuses like everyone else does about injuries, but by the way, we've got a lot of injuries, and I'm not going to make excuses about the fact that everyone's tired, because Thursday, Sunday is not really a thing that we do here. But by the way, we have played Thursday, Sunday, and it's Thursday again. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's very good at he's brilliant at kind of saying what he wants to say, but also claiming he's not saying anything at all.
I never know what to believe what he says anymore. It's gone from I'm really happy with our squad, we don't need to sign anyone else, we don't want to sign leaders, to I need more players. Hang on, 3 weeks ago you said we didn't need anyone. Yeah. We'll see what the shape of the squad looks like in January. It's going to look about the same as it does now, mate, because no one's leaving before then and no one's coming in before then. So absolutely. I mean, look, if we look at the table, Sean, I mean, it is very, very. If we go from Brighton, the three above are on more points, but Brighton, obviously, because that's why they're higher in the table. What a stupid thing to say. Brighton and Man City 23, down to Bournemouth in 13th. So we're looking at 10 clubs there. Is that 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 clubs. 5 points. Separated by 5 points. Now, I don't think it will stay like that. I always feel like the cream normally rises to the top and teams will start putting runs together. But this is quite a big game, Sean, from the point of view, yes, for all of our indifferent form, you could say Brentford have been indifferent. Man United have been indifferent. Brighton have been indifferent. Fulham, Newcastle, Villa, everyone has. But this feels like a game for me where if we do get beaten, the gap's going to start opening up to fourth to be probably going to be 6 points, because I can't believe that everyone above us is going to lose. Yeah. So this is quite a big game. Otherwise, Sean, it does put massive pressure on the Chelsea game, because we could either be cemented in the top 4 come Sunday night, or we could be 9 points off it. This is a huge week, right? Huge week. Massive, mate. Massive. And you got Rangers around the corner, right? And that's a massive game as well. Like, let's not sit there and think that that's a 3 points. Going up to Ibrox, not nice. Thursday night, if it's windy and rainy and cold up there, is Pedro Porro going to enjoy that? Is Pape Sarr going to enjoy that? Did you see the training video this week, mate, of these guys? Last week, it was last Monday,
So like 9 days ago, they all came out, and it was definitely a cold day, but like all of the squad, the camera was just sort of planted on the side of the pitch, picking up whatever was going on, and they all came out and they all had their snoods on. They were doing this, and they were like warming each other up, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know it's just a little irrelevant thing, but you know, sometimes you need a little bit more like sturdiness in the kind of the mental framework of playing cold nights in Stoke, right? And I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need men. You need men.
Pros. All of this is what made me laugh, Sean. Honestly, the same people that have a pop at me every day are the same people that were having a pop at me for saying the same thing they're saying now. And I'll explain what I mean. In the summer, all summer, I said, we need senior pros. We need senior pros. We need first teamers. Don't worry, Savva. It's a youth project. The fruit's going to come. The fruit's going to come. Now, all of a sudden, it's, but, you know, we need some senior pros and we didn't buy enough players. Hang on.
Mate, we have got more. We've got more 18-year-old talent than the hub.
Oh, mate, it's madness. It is. I mean, look, there's nothing saying we can't go to Bournemouth and get the win. But the more I'm looking at it, Sean, we've won 1 in 5, which isn't great. The last away performance though was City, but this is going to be a very different opposition in terms of they're not just going to have 60% of the ball, Bournemouth. They're not going to try and dominate it. They will be tactically very clever to try and pick us apart. What do you see being the difference in this game? You know, because I'm not going to blame injuries. We've got more than enough good players to be beating Fulham, Roma and Bournemouth.
100%. 100% you have. And that's the thing, right? It comes down to mentality. And this is where I agree with Ange 100%. He's always talking about mentality. You know, he always harks on about the difference between the very best and the next level down isn't that much when it comes to technicalities and abilities on the ball or off it. It's about mentality, willpower, desire, drive, the willingness to go the extra mile, the willingness to work for your teammate. I 100% agree with that. And I also agree with Gary Neville when he made that point about Tottenham against City after we beat them 4-0. And he was like, you know, what is it that makes James Maddison, etc., put in a shift like that against City and then not do it against Ipswich the week before? And he goes, is it something down to, and it's like, he goes, it's not difficult to get up for the big games. It's about getting up for the smaller games. And to me, where I see the banana skin here is that Bournemouth are capable of being as good as Manchester City, but is there the same gravitas that's given and attached to the fixture? I'd say no. It's probably not going to be on TV. And there, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but like on that basis, you've got this kind of double-edged sword of, all right, sometimes you can be not really up for the smaller games because it's not that kind of big of a deal. It's not on TV. It's not talked about all week. It's not like not a big deal, but you're ultimately just better than them and you can make it happen and get it done. But when they're capable of really hurting you, and it also isn't given the gravitas or the attention that the Man City games are, then you have that double-edged problem of, are the players going to raise themselves to the levels necessary against a team that's very capable anyway? And I sadly, mate, I don't think they will. So therefore, I don't have that many hopes for Thursday night. And I'm usually really positive. I always usually back Tottenham to win. On this one, I don't think we're going to. I think we're going to lose against Bournemouth them, unless we like find something within us to level up our effort. And what I saw against Fulham really took the stuffing out of my turkey. You know, it pissed me off, if I'm honest, seeing these guys walking around and doing this during the game when the ball's up the other end of the pitch and you should be back defending it. Why are you standing there rubbing your hand? How about you get warm by running more, Brennan Johnson? How about you get warm by getting back and putting in a sliding tackle and helping out Porro and helping out Archie Gray, who's fighting for his life to try and forge a place in the team, being played out of position and no one's helping him in the hardest position on the pitch with the tactics set up as they were. You know, come on. Like, there's just not enough work rate, not enough effort. And that does come down to Ange, and it comes down to the individuals in the team to like recognize that this is a profession. You're supposed to be professionals and you shouldn't have to, like, Savva, when you work, sorry, this is a long rant, mate, long answer. When you at work, right, you don't get the excuse of waking up on a Monday morning and going, can't really be bothered today because it's not Friday. And I'm, like your boss would go, yep, sorry, pick up the phone or
do what you do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these players can like go, not.
I think the thing is for me as well, what I want to see is, and again, this comes back down to, I completely agree with you, by the way, but I think it comes down to some of the tactics as well. Sometimes I just think there's games where you have to say, you know what, we're not going to go and outplay everyone. We're not going to go and dominate possession. Sometimes first 15, 20 minutes, you know, you don't have to go gung-ho. Let's sit in a little bit. Let's figure out what they've got. Let's let them, let their wingers get the ball, see what they're made of, you know, but where we're doing this whole, that's not who we are, mate. I feel like it's almost letting the players off from that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it is,
I don't think, like we can say with Mad, I think it's all of our players. I feel the same with Bentancur. I feel the same with Basuma. I feel the same.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I focus on the front guys, but those guys are just as culpable. 100%.
You're right.
100%.
You're right. And we should be going there tomorrow. Tomorrow, the mindset should be, Thursday should be, right, we could end tonight in fourth. That should be the mindset. But the mindset we seem to have is, well, it doesn't matter because Ange will let us off in the press anyway. Do you know what I mean? Ange will turn around and go, well,
Ange will say in isolation, it's kind of just one game. But it's not just one game because it was one game last week and it was one game on Thursday against Roma and it was one game against Ipswich and it was one game against Palace and it was one game against however many other teams this season. Like in isolation, yeah, but that runs dry. When at the same time you beat Manchester City and you go, well, it is significant actually. You know, not many teams have done it. Oh, so it's not just one game against City. You know, you can't run with the heart. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it. Sorry, you need to be a little bit consistent and also recognise that one game after another becomes a trend, and a trend becomes a problem.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. This is when people say to me, like, do you know how many times I get called knee-jerk, Sean, even though I've had the same opinion for a year? Like, it's like, oh, just because we didn't win a game. And it's like, well, it's not that we didn't beat Fulham. It was that either side of Man City, Sean, we've had 4 games. You know, we've had 2 games either side. We've had 4 games where, let's be fair, Ipswich was crap. Galatasaray was woeful.
Yeah.
Fulham was poor. And
Palace was awful.
I thought Roma was hit and miss. So if you
from that Brighton second half, from then for me,
it's been up and down.
Well, more down than up. Let's be honest. And even against City, and I rightly gave the team and I gave Ange a lot of credit against City because he did what I've wanted, which is 10% dialed back, cognizant. You bake in some of the variables, you factor in the opposition strengths, you get tight, you hunker down, and you ride it out, and then you break and you take advantage of the conditions and the nuances of the environment. And I thought that was smart and he deserves a tick in that box. But that said, let's be honest, City could have been 2-0 up after 10 minutes. And then if that's the case, that game goes off on a different reality timeline. Of course. Then you're looking at, well, City, Fulham, Roma, Galatasaray, Palace, Ipswich, and Fulham, 7 games on the bounce that could have been better and wasn't because... And Fraser Forster, the guy that we've all been going, oh God, the whole thing's falling apart without Big Vic. Fraser Forster, Ben Davies, and Radu Dragusin kept us in most of those games.
Yeah, and this is why when people keep saying to me, injuries, Sean, I think our best performers in the last few games have been the ones that came in for those injuries. Just quickly, Gary, listen, when you said this is a loser mentality, listen, let me ask you a question. Over the last 7 or 8 years, how many times have we seen Man City in the first 5-10 minutes of games not really do too much? You watch the first 5-10 minutes of games, Man City don't go full throttle at your throat. Right, Man City, first 5 minutes, the other team has a counter-attack, the other team gets on the ball, and then what do Man City do? They get to about minute 8, minute 9, minute 10, they put their foot on the ball, and they start going, right, we've seen what you've got. We're going to control this now. I'm not saying, Gary, that you give the ball to the other team and say, attack us. What I'm saying is, from minute 1, don't open the game up. From minute 1, don't say, we're gung-ho, go on. Tomorrow, Thursday, don't say to Semenyo and Evan Nilsson, etc., and Clivert, go on, just playing behind us. Make it tough. Make it, put your foot on the ball, slow it down. That's not a loser mentality, Gary. That's actually a winner's mentality. Just going gung-ho, that's not a winning. I know everyone thinks it is. It's not working.
Oh, mate, this whole lose them. I hear it all the time in the fans in the comment section. People going, I don't know, a season like if you are not absolutely demanding success from things that you have no control over, then you have a loser's mentality. But I'm a winner in life. I'm a winner. I have a winner's mentality because I hold people to account for things that I can't personally control the outcomes of. What are you talking about? People call me a loser all the time because I'm okay with Tottenham's kind of progression towards where we are, and I'm a little bit more patient, a little bit more also cognizant of Daniel Levy's, like, the challenge that he has to bear. And people go, sure, you're a loser. You're a loser's mentality. Oh, you're a winner, are you, mate? Because what? Because you sit there and say it's unacceptable that my football team hasn't won a trophy in 25 years. That makes me a winner. You don't get to put your hand on the trophy. You're not responsible for any of this, right? And so if you're calling me a loser, I'll stack up my life accomplishments against yours without knowing you, and I'm pretty sure I'll win. So let's not do that.
It's strange. Again, the people that say like what that guy just said, and big up to Gary for putting the post in. I just think sometimes you've got to understand a little bit of in-game management. And listen, Klopp's football wasn't always 100. Listen, I know everyone did the famous rock and roll game. Klopp's game wasn't always 100 miles an hour. Sometimes Liverpool just sat on the ball for a little bit. And this is what top teams do. Real Madrid, who have won everything over and over and over again for decades.
Yeah.
When you watch Real Madrid, they're not gung-ho. Real Madrid aren't gung-ho. Sometimes I watch Real Madrid and I go, God, you're boring. But then come the end of the season, they're in Champions League finals. And
don't forget, Savva, everyone that supports Real Madrid is a winner. They are all winners in life because they support Real Madrid. And everyone who supports a team that's not one of the big five, you're all losers. It's such a ridiculous narrative. It's so silly.
It's absolutely crazy. If me wanting Spurs to control games a bit more is a loser's mentality. Look, all I'm saying is this, Sean, we've got 6 minutes left, right? I always use this example. Always. Everyone in my chat knows it. You probably heard me say it. If I am the manager of a team that are coming up to face Tottenham Hotspur right now, I've already got a head start on what is my plan going to be. Right. Well, we know they play ridiculously high inverted fullbacks. Right. Where's my wingers? Wingers, come here. Here's what we're going to do in this game. You watch.
Yep.
Fulham did it to a T. Roma
when we win
did
the ball back from a sloppy pass, you just get on your toes, run into the pace, and then whoever's the centre back or the fullback, just ping it into the corner, and you have space for days. You know what? You know what the most frustrating thing about that reality is, mate? Is that there isn't a single team out there in world football who would benefit more than Tottenham Hotspur by just once is all you need to do it, is to flip the script and change your tactic. Because as soon as you do it once, not only are you going to immediately benefit from the fact that the opposition have spent all week planning to play against a team that they thought was going to do it one way, and then you've done it the other. So all of their preparation is out of the window and you've caught them off guard. But just doing it once then plants that seed of doubt into the next manager's preparation and the next manager's preparation and the next manager's preparation. And so those 3, 4, 5 managers to come that are playing Tottenham 5 in the next 5 weeks, none of them can dedicate all of their week towards the Ange ball version that they thought was going to happen. You do it once, you change the script once, exactly. And then the next 5 managers go, well, is he going to change it again or is he going to go back to Ange ball? And they have to prepare for both possible outcomes. And so there's not a team out there that could benefit more than just once doing something different than Tottenham Hotspur.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. Now, not every team is going to have enough quality to be able to beat us, right? But I'm starting to see it more and more and more now in the games that you know what they're going to do. Look, Roma have been dreadful, by the way. Roma have been absolutely dreadful. They came to White Hart Lane and their tactic was brilliant. That, you know, on another day, look, we could have won. On another day, they could have won. But their tactic was brilliant. Get the ball down the channels, exploit the weaknesses, and get balls into that box. And unfortunately, Fulham did the same thing. And if it wasn't for Fraser Forster, right? If it wasn't for Fraser Forster, that would have been exposed a whole lot more. And I agree. Maybe it might not be as noticeable on Thursday night because it's a bit of a smaller pitch. But Chelsea, in the Chelsea game, Chelsea are brilliant with their wide men and Cole Palmer feeding them, right? Yep. Do not in any circumstances play the 2 inverted wingers high up the pitch and allow Jadon Sancho or Madueke or Neto, whoever plays on the wings, Do not allow them that space.
And if you are going to do it because it's who we are, mate, then at least give Pedro Porro a chance by putting Decky out on the right, but letting him drift in with the ball and letting him get back and help. And at least give Archie or Destiny a chance by putting Dominic Solanke in the 9 and bringing Sonny back out on the left, right? Like you need to give yourself a fighting chance, and if you put the same 4 boys up front that you did against Fulham, you're going to get torn apart in both games. It's too much of the same, too little in the way of contributions. And for me, Brennan Johnson is someone that can come off the bench maybe and nick a goal late on. And same with Timo Werner against tired legs. But if you've got somewhat more options, you go back to type. And listen, I was just saying about kind of that predictability that doesn't need to be so predictable. And the second that it's not, you then change things up and you probably see instant success. There's a player that's done that this year. What were we saying all last season and the season before about Decky? Right? You stick him on the right. He's trapped out on the touchline. He doesn't have the one-on-one take on specialist pace. Doesn't have the acceleration. He cuts back in. Predictable. You show him onto his right foot. He cuts back in on his left. You block that cross and yada, yada, yada. Frustrating performances. He's changed it up this year. And now players do not know whether he's going to go to the byline, whether he's going to cut in, whether he's going to run and drive and use that sort of sweet little deft touch that he's got alongside his wonderful body strength. And you've got a different version of Decky that's emerged because he's less predictable and teams can't set up to know exactly what he's going to do. And of course, coming central is obviously giving him more space, but there's no small part of it is down to the less predictability of his play, which means that teams and players can't just set up in a way where they show him down the outside and sit half a yard on the inside. And when he does cut back in, your right foot's there to block the cross. It's not rocket science. This is my new phrase. It ain't rocket science. You just got to change things up and get in the mind of the opposition. And I just think that Ange isn't doing enough of it. And it's going to cost him. And it's going to cost us.
I just think when other teams play, they look for our weakness. I don't think we look for other teams' weakness. We've just got one way of playing. And again, look at if you take Chelsea, the biggest issue with it as well is they've got a bloke called Cole Palmer in there who every time he gets that ball, he looks for that ball either into Neto or Sancho, Madueke or Nicholas Jackson. And you know what Chelsea have got? Do you know what? When I've watched them, Sean, I want to play like Chelsea do. I know I'm not allowed to say that as a Spurs fan, but their back 4 plays as a back 4. So their fullbacks are out-and-out fullbacks that overlap, right? There's no inverted wingers. They play 2 central midfielders in front of their back 4. I'm not saying they're both number 6s, but they're both hardworking.
Balanced,
both coming into their own this year after a year or so of abuse about how bad they are in terms of Enzo.
Are you about Lavia or are you talking about Caicedo? Which one? Who are you talking about?
Caicedo and Fernandes, because Lavia.
Okay, yeah, but Lavia's coming back in, and he is more of a 6, right? So he does give him that kind of defensive. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But the point is that they've got 2 that go in there, do all the work, and then what they do is they've got Palmer as the number 10. Palmer he's not asked to be a centre mid or a right. Palmer plays as the number 10, and he's got 2 wingers that play wide and want to beat their man. Yeah. When I watch Chelsea, I think that's how we should set up. That is what we should do. Yeah, but
who do you pick in that? So go on, with our squad fully fit, how do you set up that way? So obviously the back 4 picks itself generally. You just ask them to do things that they're not necessarily asked to do right now. Pedro, stay wide. You haven't got to come in all the time. Right. Same with Destiny. Overlap on the outside. Who's your wingers? Who's your 9? Who's your 10? And who are your midfield 2?
Look, so I mean, Solanke's the obvious one. Madison's my playmaker. I would have Kulu. I would have Kulu, Madison, and Son rotating where they
just
play.
Moving in and out.
I do need to go in a minute. I'm not saying, right? I'm not saying it has to be exactly the same as Chelsea's. I'm not. Yeah. But what they've got is they've got no square pegs in round holes. Everyone's doing what they're meant to be doing, and they look like a solid unit for it. When I watch us, it just feels like Porro's playing out of position. So is Madison. Kulu sometimes is, sometimes isn't. Solanke seems to be so deep. Sonny doesn't look comfortable out on the left. You know, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. But Sean, I am going to leave it there. I've got to jump on to the Danless channel. Guys and girls, if somebody would be kind enough to put Sean's link in the chat, Yeah,
It's all
you
good, man.
know
It's been someone's been putting in. Thank you, mate. Whoever that man is, thank you for the support. And Savva, great to be back on the channel, man. It's been 8-9 months, I think, since I've been on here because of my absence. So I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun, my man. It's been a lot of fun. Shout out
been
to
a
the
long
chat as well.
time. You and Henry both disappeared out my life at the same time. It's it was hard, but we got through it in the end. Guys and girls, please subscribe to Sean. You know where to find him. He is now back. And Sean and I will do some shows for you every week on either channel. Take care. Let me know what you think of my new intro as well for anyone that saw my new intro. That would be appreciated. And I am going to redirect everyone right now over to the Danalist. Do me a favor. Dan's a really nice guy. He's a very nice guy. Please follow me over there. Watch some football chat. And please do subscribe because Sean and I will tell you, and listen, Sean's way ahead of me now, but when you're trying to get to that first 1,000, it feels like it's never going to come. Right. Please do help people, do support. It really does mean a lot. So take care, everyone. And as always, come on, you Spurs.